Hello, welcome to episode 273 of the Craft House Magic podcast. My name's Ellie and I'm coming to you from Norwich in Norfolk in the UK, and today I'm here to share with you all the things that I've been making in the last couple of weeks. So today we have some knitting, we have some crochet, we have some needle punch, we have cross stitch, we have confessions, oh dear. I have a gadget, some information on what's occurring, 2 questions for the Ask Me Anything section, and a shop update and a little appearance from Jensen. So we have an absolutely bumper episode today. There are timestamps in the description bar down below if you want to skip to any of the sections so that you don't get bored with a particular section if you're not into that. So let's get on to the knitting, shall we? We have a finished object that I've got to show you. In fact, I've got a couple. Barbara, would you like to come over? Thank you very much, Barbara. Barbara is wearing my Wonder sweater. This is a pattern by Tin Can Knits. I have made a few modifications to it. So normally it is supposed to be quite a lot of positive ease, and I have got no ease with this particular garment. I've just chosen my bust measurement so that I don't have loads of excess fabric, because I find that I've got quite narrow shoulders compared to my bust and my waist, so it fits me better if I just go with the size of my bust without any positive ease. I've shortened the sleeves. I've got a 3/4 length sleeve, and I've also shortened the bottom of the garment. It is about 15 inches at the bottom, and depending on what size you choose, I think the size I chose, which is 44.5 inches for the bust, that came up about 18 I think for the full length, but I've only knitted it 15 inches because I thought that's way big enough for me because I'm quite short. I'm 5'3", so I've adjusted it there as well. So I did only end up using about 395 grams. So I used 4 of the 5 skeins that I dyed up, and I used a fingering weight yarn, but it's my BFL and nylon base, which has got a high twist and is quite plump for a fingering weight yarn. I did get gauge on it with the needles, so that was absolutely fine. So this pattern has got a gorgeous cable detail down the front with garter stitch either side, and then the back and the sleeves are just plain. So it's quite an easy knit. I did find that when I got so far through knitting the body of the garment, I was getting a bit bored of the sort of cables. It's sort of, you need a little bit of attention but not too much, so it was sort of a little bit boring at parts. But if you were watching something interesting on the telly, it would then keep me interested in carrying on knitting. But once I got so far, the rest seemed to zoom quickly, so it did feel like I was knitting this for ages. I think it's taken me 2 months to knit this one, but I do think that this will be something that I wear a lot because it's slightly more durable with it being BFL. It's got the longer staple length, and I think that because it's quite a plain jumper, then I can put it with jeans and wear it as a staple garment in my wardrobe. I'm really pleased with how that's come out. So I wanted to talk about a couple of things to do with garment knitting. When I started the cast on for this, I was thinking, should I do a stretchy cast on or not? I worked out how many stitches that I was going to cast on the neck hole was going to be, and I thought, oh, it's a little bit on the tight side, so I did do a stretchy cast on for this, and it's worked nicely. So I think it does depend on how big your neckline is as to whether you do a stretchy or a non-stretchy cast on. So my advice is to do a stretchy one if it's quite a close neck, and a non-stretchy one if you've got like a long V-neck or something. I do think it does make a difference what size you cast on as well, because I've kept with the size that's my bust measurement rather than having positive ease. Then I know that the neckline is going to be slightly narrower because I've picked the smaller size. But if you have gone for a size that's quite baggy and quite a lot of positive ease, you'd need to be careful on the neck being baggy because it is supposed to be a wider neck at the top. Anyway, I've waffled on for quite some time about the neckline now, so hopefully that helps people who are umming and ahhing about what cast on to do for a neckline for a garment. So what else did I do? I don't think I modified much else because it's pretty easy. It's a straight down knit when you get to the body, and there are some decreases in the arms, but you have to do quite a lot of rows before you even get to that bit. I think you can start to see the decreases down here. Obviously, because I stopped knitting a bit earlier, I didn't do all the decreases in the pattern, but because I wanted it to be a 3/4 length sleeve. I kept trying it on as I was knitting the sleeve just to see how long I wanted it, but I knitted this to about 10 inches stitches to the sort of length that I think is nice for a 3/4 length sleeve. I'm going to try this on, but I'm going to wear it at the end of the video because Jensen will be wearing his version of this pattern as well. His version has got 3 cables in because he's got the obviously 2-year-old because he's only 2.5, and the adult ones have got these 5 cables, but you'll be able to see it properly at the end of the video when we've both got them on. But if you skip along to the bit where I put the section Jensen's new clothes, you'll be able to see both of those. So the yarn that I've knitted it in is called Ice Ice Baby, and my own hand dyed yarn, and it's one of my sort of tonal colourways that I've got in the shop at the moment. If you hadn't seen, I think, the last podcast episode, I've changed my way of sort of dyeing things. I used to have like 100 odd different colourways that were dyed to order. I'm doing a small section of dyed to order colourways, and all my mini sets that I've got in the shop are actually off the shelf. This is quite a newish colourway. I will keep this in the shop for a few more weeks, and then that'll be taken down, and I'll have a new set of yarn so that they've got a nice turnover of sort of fresh colourways rather than having the same ones in the shop all the time. And it also challenges me to think of new colourways. But thank you very much, Barbara. So this is it on me. Really pleased how that's come out. That has stretched quite a lot at the front. I was a bit worried about the garter stitch being a bit short at the front. It does come up a little bit, but it goes plenty over my tummy to make me feel comfortable, so I'm really pleased about that. I will do a proper twirl when we're out, showing you Jensen's version of the Wanderer as well, but I thought I'd give you a quick peek now before I go outside with it. So there we go, that is the Wander Sweater by Tin Can Knits in my Ice Ice Baby colourway. So I've got a couple more finished objects to show you. Now, if you did see the video I put out, I don't know if it's about a month ago now, I went through all of my knitting projects and crochet project bags, and it was a bit naughty that I'd got things I hadn't finished. When I finished my jumper, I went to a couple of these projects and finished them off, so I'm very, very chuffed with myself. It's funny, isn't it? Oh dear. So these actually 2 patterns I've written myself. This particular pair, I'd only actually knitted one of these, so I've gone back and finished those. So the first one I've got to show you is my Jolly Jingles socks, and they're basically a faux cable down the leg, and these are supposed to be like little sleigh bells because they're a Christmas sock pattern that I designed. And I've got the pattern, it only comes to just below the heel flap because then you've got a nice easy foot to knit, because I always think Christmas season nice and easy. So I did actually forget how nice it is to do these faux cables. They're a really lovely knit to do, and you could actually do them all the way down the foot if you wanted to. So these ones are knitted in I Will Always Love You colourway. This one I've put back in the shop, this colourway, but I will only be leaving it in the shop till the end of next week because this is sort of an older colourway, but I wanted to have it in the shop if I'm showing it with a finished object. So it's got different tones of blue, and it's actually inspired by the movie version of I Will Always Love You by Whitney Houston, because in the video there is like a lake scene, which is why it's all different blues. I do love a blue yarn, so these are lovely for me, and I will be saving these for a new Christmas pair of socks. Even though I've actually knitted it in a non-Christmassy colourway, I just thought it would be nice to have something in a different colour for a change. But I think blue can be sort of icy and a little bit Christmassy in some ways. So there we go, we have a finished pair of socks, and they are off the needles. So that one was finished, and also this is quite bad really. This pair I actually designed in 2022, so these have been on the needles 2 years, but now they're done, so it's okay. The second pair I've got to show you are my Rockin Robin socks. These are a pair of fingering weight version. Oh, I forgot to say actually, all of my later sock patterns all come in instructions for fingering weight and DK weight, so these are both fingering weight versions of the pattern. So my Rockin Robin sock pattern has got the robin's feet at the top and a double cuff with a picot edge on it, and then again a nice simple foot, but there is some detail on the actual heel itself. But I'm really pleased to finish this one. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pop this colourway in the shop just till the end of next week as well. I will bring this one out again just before Christmas as well, so people can order these if they want to knit a pair of Christmas socks, but they'll only be in the shop until the end of next week for this batch, and then I'll bring them back sometime in November. So these are the Rockin Robin socks. You can buy the pattern on my website on Ravelry, and the sock yarn will be available until next Friday. But I'm so pleased to get these off the needles because I feel guilty for having too many project bags on the go. So those are all the things that I've actually finished with my knitting, and I haven't actually cast this last one on, but I thought I'd show you my plans. So on my sort of make 9 list, which isn't make 9, it's make like 25, but you know, I have the Forestland sweater, and I've dyed up some yarn especially for the Forestland sweater. This is in Nightshift colourway and Superstitious, and these are in the same sort of batch of colours that I did with the Ice Baby, like the jumper I showed you. So those are going to be in the shop for the next couple of weeks, and then we're going to have a new whole set of colours in there, so they won't be available to purchase anymore. So these ones are the ones I've dyed up for me to do the Forestland sweater. I'm going to do the main colours, obviously the Nightshift, the dark sort of blue. It's got a sort of tinge of petrol blue in there as well. It's got a lovely sort of shade to it, and this is like a greeny yellow. I thought would go really well to contrast with it. That's in Superstition colourway. So I've dyed them all up on DK in my merino nylon base so that I can knit the Forestland sweater, which is a sweater by Jennifer Steingass, and I'm going to choose the 44 3/4 inch bust, which is just a little bit bigger than my bust circumference, so that will be no positive ease again, like I normally choose. I've dyed 5 skeins of the Nightshift and 1 of the Superstition, even though it says in the pattern that you need 6 skeins of the main colour, but because I'm going to do 3/4 length sleeves, I've dyed up 5. I'm sure that'll be fine. If I haven't got enough to do 3/4 length sleeves, I could always do the sleeve just to the elbow and do an elbow length sleeve instead, or even a shorter one. That'll be absolutely fine, but I'm sure that'll be enough from previous experience of knitting garments. So I'm very excited to cast that on. So I have got a pair of mittens that I'm working on the pattern with as well. I've dug those out and I want to get those sorted in the next couple of weeks, and that pattern will be sent out to test knitters so that I can get that in the shop as well. So I feel like I'm getting organised in my life, especially with my knitting. And now I'm going on to my crochet section. Very excited. I've got 2 projects to show you in the crochet section. First of all, I've made a little bit of progress on my Daisy Puff blanket. Probably doesn't look that much progress to you, but I've basically done 2, 4, 6, 8, 9, I think. 9 of the hexagons to do right across the top, so it is getting bigger, and I am actually started to make a record of the size. So at the moment it is 68 by 50 centimeters, or 27 inches by 20 inches. So I'll be able to tell you what the size increase is on the next video. I'm slowly plugging away at this. This is probably going to be quite a long-term project, but I love it. It's such a fun project. So I am doing fingering weight held double to do these DK hexagons, and it just makes it easier to use up scraps that I've got. These are all my sort of turquoise and blue, green and grey scraps that I've got in my stash. I had a bit of a sort out of all my minis, or not just minis, scraps of leftover yarn from all sorts of projects, and it's nice to be able to put the colours that I think go together all together, and this will go really nicely with our lounge being the blues and greens. So I did do a little video of exactly how I've modified the instructions, and I'll leave a link to that in the description bar down below so you can watch that video. There's a timestamp for the particular section that talks about this blanket, so you can find it nice and easy. So the back, you can see, looks nice and neat as well. I'm joining them as I go, but like I say, in that video I talk about it in more detail. It's similar to the way that Sandra does in her video tutorial, but I did change it slightly because I'm only going through the back loop, but in that video I show a little bit more detail about it. So that's my crochet progress on my blanket, and I have started a new garment, a crochet garment. In fact, I've never actually crocheted a garment before, I don't think. I've always done blankets and cushions and things like that. So I've got my basket of pink yarn out, and I've taken some of it out because I didn't think that it sort of went very well. So I've picked a selection of colours that I think go together really well. I've picked sort of coral pinks, purples, some mid-tone pinks, some browns and pinks, and then sort of dusky pinks as well. Started the first square. So this cardigan is the Ariana cardigan by Amy Christoffers. I've made one square so far out of all my scraps. So what I've done is that I've got sort of 5 groups of colours that I've grouped in the basket. I've got the coral, the purples, the sort of mid-tone pinks, the beigey browns with a pink in it, and then like a darker purple. And then I've started again from the coral group, purple and then pink. So that's the order of things that I'm going to go with. So they should look very similar, each of these squares. So I'm going to copy this again and again until I've got enough panels to create the cardigan. Now the cardigan is a free pattern, so I can show you my notes on this. I've made a lot of scribbly notes on the actual diagram of what the pattern looks like. If you want to see this a little bit better, what I have done is I've photographed this sheet and I've put it on my Ravelry page so that you can see how I'm going to modify this. So because the pattern is actually a worsted weight yarn, what I've done is I've worked out how many rows I need to make it in fingering weight instead of using the worsted weight yarn. And I've done, I think it's 9, well there's 8 rows here, but there's 1 row I've got to do in the yarn that's going to bring it all together, which I'm going to use the sort of mid-tone dusky pink on it all. So there's 8 rows on this particular square, but I've worked out my sizes and exactly how I'm going to do this. So in a couple of the examples, there was a lady that had made some notes on her page, and she also has got a YouTube channel as well, and her Ravelry page references the name It Is a Sarah, and she'd mentioned that she'd cut out the sort of bat wing shape, which I am going to do as well. Some people said that they had issues with this because they then found that the arm was too small, but I've calculated sort of the arm circumference, and I think that I will be okay because my shoulders generally narrower and my arms are generally narrower than the pattern sizes for the body. So normally I have to size down for the sleeve, so I think this will be absolutely fine. What I'm going to do though is, as I'm joining them together, I'll sort of leave this bit here until last to join together so that I don't have to sort of undo as much if I do have to make it a bat wing shape to be able to get my arm in there. So I've worked out that the width here, what the width is going to be around the whole cardigan, and that's going to be 44¼ inch, and then say 1 inch for the button band, because obviously that's going to be overlapping as well. So I've worked out that that's fine around the body. And then on the arm, so when I take into account 2 of these squares, it'll be 2 times 7 3/8, so it'll be 14 3/4 around the arm. So that should give me plenty of room, because I normally have about, I think it's a 12 or a 13 inch arm when I measure that, so I've got a little bit of positive ease to make sure there's enough room. So I'm hoping that under the arm that should fit as well. I've cut off a bit of the arm length to make them 3/4 length sleeves, because you know how I like my 3/4 length sleeves. And then I've just made some notes of the different sizes on there, but again, this is on Ravelry. I have taken a picture of it if you wanted to have a look. I'll leave a link to my Ravelry page. But so I've planned everything. I have not blocked this, so I'm actually going to block this today, make sure that I am happy with the size and it stays within the realms of the measurement that I actually took from it. So I've measured this unblocked, so I will block it and just double check it, but I did sort of ease it out a little bit when I've measured it, so it should be relatively accurate. But I'm really enjoying how these colours are coming together, and it's lovely to use up the stash. So I'm using a 3mm crochet hook for this, because that was suggested by It Is a Sarah, and she ended up doing less rounds on hers, but she's obviously quite a lot slimmer than me, so that's why she's been able to manage that. But I did more rounds on mine compared to hers. So but I've made notes on the page that I've taken a photograph on my Ravelry page, so you should be able to see any changes. And if I change anything by the time next time I do a podcast, I'll explain to you what I've been up to. But this is a lovely free pattern, and I think it's ideal for using up bits of leftover yarn, especially if you've got a stash of one colour scraps that sort of go together really nicely. So that is my crochet that I've got to show you, and I do have some needle punch. Now I did start this a while ago, and I only just got back around to it because my lovely friend Claire sent me some yarn that she'd got left over from her kit. So I had previously done these two pieces before, and they are from a company called the Modern Crafter, and I picked up a kit to do these two from the East Anglia Yarn Festival 2 years ago now. So I finished these, and then I bought enough extra bits and bobs to do a third one, but I didn't have enough of the background creamy white colour to make it the same. However, now Claire sent me the extra bit, there was enough, although this bit here is a slightly different cream, but I don't think you can tell because it's sort of inside the pattern, but it's now the same. It's a little bit scruffier because I started to punch it using a different hoop, and there was less room, and I ended up doing it smaller, and then I pulled it out loads of times, and Jensen has been helping me with it, which I was very impressed with. With a needle punch, obviously you need to hold the punch needle as well, but he was actually being able to create little stitches, which was lovely. He did get fed up of it after a few goes, but at least he was able to sort of have a go. These are going to be in Jensen's room. Obviously J for Jensen. That's going to be in the middle, and then I'm going to put these either side. I finished these off using the same frames that the Modern Crafter had used in the original kit. I bought another couple, and I've put felt on the back of these. Now when I did this one, was the first one I didn't stretch the felt at all, and I then used just a blanket stitch around the edge. Did find when I come to do this one that actually if you stretch the felt out a little bit over the back, it comes out neater, get rid of any sort of creases that have ingrained in the fabric, in the felt fabric. You know, when you fold felt in, it sort of stays in there, but if you stretch it a bit, it looks a little bit neater, finishes it off nicely. The instructions for the Modern Crafter actually said to glue the fabric on the inside of the frame, but I had another kit from another company that actually said about doing it like this, so I preferred this finishing method, so that's what I went with. So I've finally finished these. They will eventually get put up on the wall in Jensen's room. I am planning on a bit of a transformation of his room. It's quite plain at the moment, and lots of things that I've sort of made to go up aren't up yet. So I've been making some little, I made some little felt ornaments to go on a little musical mobile that he used to use when he was really tiny. I'm going to take those off and make sort of bunting with it, so I need to put those together, and I need to get some shelves to put up in there as well. So I might have a video where I do a little bit of a decoration of Jensen's room. Might give some people ideas if they're making things to decorate a child's room as well, but eventually get round to that. This may be a few months, just to warn you. Right, so that is my needle punch. I will leave links to the website where I got the kits from. I think that they still do that particular pattern, but I love the Monstera leaves. They're absolutely gorgeous. Right, I'm on to my cross stitch section now. This is a very old project. Well, I started it before Jensen was born. He's now over 2.5, and I just haven't finished it yet, so I've picked this up again. So this is a pattern by the Cross Stitch Guild. It's called Counted Thread Collection Little School Sampler, and I bought this from the Festival of Quilts maybe 5 years ago. Started it just before Jensen was born, and then havoc ensued, so I did not really have enough time to do any more to it. So since the last time I showed this to you, I have done a narrow border around the outside, which is like thread couched all the way around, and then I've done a little corner border as well, and then I've started doing this third bit of border around here, which needs to go all the way around the outside, and there is another border which is like thread woven into a standard stitch, I think. So, well, I'll show you that when I get to it. There's a couple more bits. There's some little dragonflies or something like that just at the sides here, and there are some more fruit that I need to stitch on these vines, and then there's a bit of a different type of stitching in the centre here, which I can't remember what it's called, but when I come to it I will tell you it, because I'll have read the instructions more recently. So this is what the pattern is going to actually look like. It's just a nice little small sampler. I do love samplers when it comes to cross stitch. I'm not a big fan of all over cross stitch because it gets a bit boring, but things like this I can sort of put down and come back to again will be lovely. Sorry I haven't pressed it before I've showed it to you. You can see where I've had my hoop on it as well. So I'm working on that, and I'm hoping, I'm quite close to finishing actually. On the next podcast in a couple of weeks, hopefully that will be finished. And I'm hoping I'm going to get it framed properly, because if you watched last week's video, I showed how Adam put up a picture that I'd made a couple of years ago. Or 4 years ago, and I got it framed a couple of years ago, and it's now up on the wall. So every 2 years something happens. But I'm so pleased with how it's turned out, being professionally framed, and I really like the big thick oak frame that I got to go with that. It was really expensive, but the amount of hours I put into that piece of work, I feel like I can justify it for some reason. Oh dear. Anyway, that is my cross stitch progress, and I have some confessions. Oh dear. I think it's all Instagram's fault, because last time I showed you that I bought something from Chapel View Crafts, and then obviously they fed me some more information on the same person that I bought something off last time. So they drew me to some more stuff that Cheryl had been making. So the thing that I saw on Cheryl's Instagram account is this little fairy cake, which I thought was absolutely gorgeous. It's got a little purple case and a little progress keeper there. So I then had to buy some other things, didn't I? It's a little scone with jam and cream on the top. I've got a little donut, and the last one's a little ice cream. So that's Cheryl from Chapel View Crafts, and I'll leave a link to her website in the description bar down below. But they're very gorgeous. Now, this links in with my gadget for this week, because I found some little plastic boxes that you can get them from the Works, but I actually had these before, but I noticed that you can get them in the Works at the moment. I think they're about £1.50. Now, I'm not mad about plastic, but because you can see all that you've got, I put quite a lot of my stitch markers in these boxes. I've got a couple of these, so I've been sort of organising them. Some are in my project bag, so I need to take them all out and put them in here so that actually I can have a look at what stitch marker is appropriate for a particular project, because I want to match the colour and things like that. So I've been using these, and it's basically just got a little plastic lid which opens up, and you can access them with the different dividers. You can take these dividers out, but it's just nice that you can separate your stitch markers, and I can see all the lovely handmade ones that I've got from various people, including Cheryl from Chapel View Crafts. So those, now that I've shown them to you, I'll take them off the little cards and I'll be organising them in my little cases. So you can see here that I've got sort of cakes separated. I've got fancier cakes and then sort of ice creams on that end, so I like to have them organised into type. Oh dear, I do get a lot of pleasure out of fancy stitch markers and progress keepers. That is my gadget for this week. I will see if I can link it on the Works website, see if you can get the box online, but I know that I actually saw them in the Works when I was in Sheringham the other week. So I'm now onto the what's occurring section. So I just wanted to mention that we've got Barbara's Day Out, which is just a crafty meetup at Dunstan Hall on the 28th of July in the Terrace Bar at 2 o'clock. So do come and join us. You don't have to tell me that you're coming, just turn up. Everyone is welcome. So don't forget to put that date in your diary, the 28th of July. I have a winner for the June subscriber giveaway. That is Diane from Sheffield. I have sent an email out to you, Diane, so do check your emails. What I will do, if anybody wins one of the subscriber giveaways, I will mention you on the podcast and I will send you an email, and I normally only ask you to confirm the first line of your address just to make sure that you haven't moved or anything, and then I'll get your prize sent out to you. And each month I normally send out 2 of the yarn clubs, the music from the movies and the pop stars sets this year. I'm on to the Ask Me Anything section now. I have 2 questions, both from Sue, but different Sues. That's a bit of a coincidence, isn't it? So the first question is referring to crochet blankets, and she wanted to know whether to use a DK or fingering weight yarn to do a blanket in. Now it really does depend on how thick you want your blanket to be, and also what pattern you choose as well. I was thinking the other day. So this blanket is not finished yet, but this is my Battenberg blanket, and this is a fingering weight blanket, so it's quite a thin blanket. It's got a nice drape to it though, but this blanket is not granny squares, they're quite solid. So I think that the fingering weight, even though it's not very thick, because you haven't got a lot of holes in there, it still seems quite warm. So if you're going to be doing, obviously this is my cardigan that I'm starting to knit, but if you did a granny square style like this, it obviously end up a little bit more lightweight because you've got a lot more holes in there. So that's your fingering weight yarn. And then if you compare that to the thicker DK, again, this is more of a solid piece of work, so it is really quite thick in the DK there. It's very warm and it feels quite heavy already, even though it isn't not very big. So that's what the sort of difference is with those. So it really does depend on your climate. I think in Norwich in the UK, I do find the DK weight yarns for our winter, and then the fingering weight yarn is quite good for cold spring evenings if you need something like that. But again, if you double this over, it's still really nice and cozy in the winter as well. So actually, if you did do a fingering weight one, you could double it over, and then it's sort of more versatile, I suppose. Whereas obviously if you make it thick, then it's going to be thick and you can't separate the layers because it is in one layer. So that's what I would recommend. Also, the fingering weight yarn takes a lot longer to crochet than the DK weight. These DK hexagons seem to crochet up really quickly. I can do possibly 3 or 4 in an evening if I have a couple of hours, whereas if I was doing it in fingering weight yarn, I can't remember how long these took me, but they do seem to come up quite a lot quicker with it being DK. So it's a balance between whether you want things to crochet up quickly or whether you want it to be more versatile. So hopefully that'll help you, Sue. It is difficult to decide. The thing is, with the DK, you can actually hold it double like me if you're using leftover yarns, if you did want to do it like that. So the other question off the other Sue was, she actually sent me an email and said, I hope this isn't a too personal question. It absolutely isn't. Where do I dye my yarn? And is Adam involved in the yarn dyeing? And is he involved with my shop as well? So I have shown my yarn dyeing in Vlogmas. I will link the video where I showed, I think I did part 1 and part 2 of dyeing yarn, and I basically do it in my really scruffy garage. So the reason why I don't show it very often is that it's really not very pretty. It looks so scruffy in there. It's got breeze block walls that are not painted. It's not very nice to look at, so I don't tend to video it, and also I don't really want to give my recipes away either, so that's one of the other reasons why I don't show you in detail of exactly how I do it. But I do show a general overview of how I dye my yarn on my Vlogmas videos, which I'll link to down below. And the second part of the question was, is Adam involved in the yarn dyeing? He doesn't actually dye the yarn, but quite often he'll help me doing the rinsing and washing stages of it, which is brilliant, because sometimes if I've been dyeing all day and my back is killing me because it's really actually hard work and you sort of stood up leaning over things, does make my back ache when I'm doing it all day, he will help me at the end of the day, which is absolutely brilliant. So thank you to Adam for helping with all the yarn dyeing, or the washing bit of the yarn dyeing, and he hangs it up for me as well. But I do all the actual painting of the yarn myself. He does help me with the shop. He helps me with the postage quite often. At the moment, because we've got Jensen, he hasn't gone to nursery properly yet. He's going in January, I think. So Jensen is being looked after by Adam during the day, but Adam does help me with postage and things. But once he goes off to nursery and then school, Adam will be helping me more and more in the shop. But he already knows my process of packaging orders and doing the postage and everything like that, so he will help me with that side of things. So hopefully that answers your question, Sue. And I think because I went through the yarn dyeing in the Vlogmas videos, if I just leave a link to there, and you can pop over to those and have a little look about my setup, but it's really not very pretty. I am hoping maybe next year to have our garage set up as a proper room rather than it being an actual garage, because sometimes in the winter it's freezing. So I can have it set up as a proper room and set up the yarn dyeing equipment there properly, and it'll just make it a little bit easier to use, I think. Currently I'm using a worktop that is from Adam's friend's old kitchen that I do my dyeing on. And it's old kitchen cupboards from their kitchen as well, so it's really not very pretty, but there you go. So now I'm on the shop update section, and I'm very excited to announce that we've got the new July yarn clubs going in the shop this Friday, the 21st of July at 7 PM GMT. You will get an email update if you're subscribed to the email list, and again I will be drawing another July prize from those subscribers, so don't forget to subscribe to my email list. Pop to my website and you get a little pop-up on the screen, or if you miss that, if you go to the bottom of the page, there's a little box to put your email address in there. So the July yarn clubs, we've got the colour of the month for July is La Esta Bonita, and it's basically inspired by the beautiful tropical turquoise and sandy colours, so it's quite a neutral, quite a pale colourway for this time, but I thought that would be really nice for a shawl or something like that. So those will be available in the normal. You can get 100 grams sock sets or shawl sets as well, or you can buy multiples of the 100 gram skeins to make a garment or something. So that'll be in the shop this Friday, along with the Pop Stars mini sets. Pop Stars will be based on Michael Jackson for the July month, and it's basically lovely pinks and greeny turquoises for this month. Some of my favourites, I think. You can see on the image the colourways, the colours that I've picked out of the music videos, and I'll be putting those together in a mini set that goes together really nicely, but it also goes together with the rest of the Pop Stars mini sets as well, so I've designed it so that it'll go together for the Pop Stars blanket. And lastly, we've got the Music from the Movies Fantasy Edition based on Flash Gordon this month. So we've got the red, yellow and sort of minty green for this month. And you can see the inspiration colours that I've picked out of the movie poster as well. So those will be coming into the shop. That's tomorrow, the 21st of June at 7 PM GMT. And they'll be in the shop until the 14th of July, and they will be shipped on the 19th of July. Be a little bit later this time because we're going to go away for a few days to Centre Parks, so that's why it's a little bit later for the month of July. And also next week I'm going to be away for a few days because it's my mum's 80th birthday, so happy birthday, mum. So that's why I'll be away for a few days, but I do put at the top of the website, I say whether I'm away for a couple of days, and normally I try and give an email out to any people that have put an order in the meantime. So finally we've got a little appearance from Jensen at the end of the podcast, and he is wearing his Wonder sweater as well, and I'll show you the both of us wearing them together. So over to you, Jensen. You gonna do a pose? Shall I pick you up? You monkey. Bye.
Show us your jumper, Jensen. What's in the front of your jumper?
Wiggly lines.
Wiggly lines?
Not wiggly lines.
Lots of wiggly lines. How many have you got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I've got 5. Climb right up there.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Upside down.
Upside down.
Upside down.
Upside down.
Upside down.
That's enough upside down. Stop there. Say bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Good boy. So thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you'd like to see more. If you click the subscribe, it is actually free. It just makes sure that you see the videos. It helps share the channel to other people as well. Next week I'll have a little sort of crafty vlog style video. So I shall see you then. Bye.